Present.
Bill Powell,
Present.
Maddie Cobble,
Here.
Ray Cruz,
Here.
Scott Boris,
Here.
Dave Richard,
I haven't spoken with Commissioner Richard. He has been emailing me today, so I assume he will be here this morning.
Judy Rungy,
Here.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of regular meeting of May 22nd and working session meeting of May 20th. If there's no corrections or additions, I have a motion for approval.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Call the roll, please.
Henry Champion,
Yay.
Bill Powell,
Yes.
Maddie Cobble,
Yes.
Ray Cruz,
Yes.
Scott Boris,
Yes.
Judy Rungy,
I'm abstaining, I wasn't here.
The yeas have it. Minutes been approved. Accepted. Public comments on agenda items? None. Review of the financial and list of bills.
The Housing Authority for the month of May, we've changed our reporting standards as we kind of discussed before. These are system-generated reports handled completely by our accountants, which minimizes the amount of possibility for error. Previously, we were manually generating the reports and the graphs. Now all these things are coming directly out of our accounting system. So we will have some changes over time as we just kind of narrow it down and pinpoint areas where we can be more efficient or be more detailed in the reporting. But the new format is designed to save a lot of time. It usually take me between an hour and a half to put those together. That's time now that can be devoted to avoiding other work. So
Returning phone calls?
yeah, that kind of thing, exactly. So the reports show that we had a $28,000 loss for the month of May, and for the year to date, a $114,000 loss at the agency level. The reason for that is completely related to our Section 8 program. We have a shortfall coming from HUD where they haven't provided us the amount of funding that we've been expecting. This is a nationwide kind of situation. They're not just doing it to us. HUD has made very clear, though, that they don't have any intention on increasing the funding level. What they're actually planning on doing is forcing housing authorities to use their reserves in order to decrease the amount of reserves held by agencies. At the end of this calendar year, HUD's going to recapture any reserves remaining on the agency books, and they'll force us to write a check for that money. Their explanation is that they will still be agency-owned dollars. However, HUD's going to be the owner, so to speak, of the funds, which in terms of managing our program becomes very, very difficult. So our goal is to house as many families as we can reasonably house going forward, but also to make sure that we have taken all the steps necessary to ensure our ability to manage the program. Just in relation to our public housing program, is kind of show the opposite side. That program has a $15,000 net profit for the month and a $10,000 net profit for the year, and that also takes into account that we have not received all of the operating funds. There'll be more capital funds that get drawn down later in the year. We're still awaiting some of the payments for the grant activity we've been doing as far as energy efficiency and those kinds of upgrades. So as a result, there'll be a lot more revenue in that program, which we planned on. Those are just, they come in lump sum payments at later points in the year. So once we receive that money, we expect the financial situation of the public housing program to continue to be strong as it has been.
Can you refresh me on AMP1 versus AMP2?
AMP1 is our family sites, and AMP2 is our all other sites, yes.
So the scattered.
And the elderly site.
And the L, yeah. Yep.
And I know in the reports it has the actual fund numbers, 45, 44, 33. We will get that changed so that it actually showcases the literal names of the AMP1, AMP2, the programs that it relates to. Are there any other questions on financials? Are there any questions on the list of bills? There was one item on the list of bills. Commissioner Rungy brought up the bill about the smoke detectors. And I know I sent out, there are a lot of emails going out between yesterday and today, so just make sure. Basically, we ordered, and I have for the board if you guys need hard copies of the bill. Essentially, we ordered 96 of one kind of smoke detector, 240 of another, and then we got carbon monoxide detectors, about 380 of those. Those relate to a lot of the REACT improvements we're making. HUD was coming in and doing on their scoring of the physical states of the properties. We wanted to make sure, of course, not having a working smoke detector is a finding, so we went through and tried to put as many of those in as we could. Are there any other questions about the list of bills?
I don't think we need a copy.
Is that a reoccurring annual thing that we're doing, or?
It is something we do once a year, yes. There are a lot of other repairs we try to make around that time, just because we know HUD will ding us for certain items that, honestly, you know, there are things we need to kind of be aware of, and Jim and I have talked about making sure that on an ongoing basis, we're aware of them and working to not really have to rush through them towards this scoring time, but that we're taking care of them all year long.
Okay.
Any other questions? May I have a motion to accept the financial report?
So move. Second.
Roll call, please.
Henry Campen,
Yay?
Bill Powell,
Yes.
Matty Cole,
Yes.
Ray Cruz,
Yes.
Scott Boris.
Yes.
Dave Richards,
Yes.
Judy Rundy,
Yes.
Been moved and approved. Yeas have it. Review of the monthly staff reports.
As of last month's board meeting, the board did approve the strategic plan. We have begun moving forward on the initiatives in that plan. First and foremost, working with our rebranding. We've been working with vehicle leasing. We're putting together RFPs, we actually have RFPs out now for those. We're evaluating our responses. So we'll be looking at bringing forward some hopefully exciting changes to the coloring, the logo, the company tagline, those kinds of things, and also updating the vehicles that we utilize right now. We're looking for smaller sedans, more energy efficient vehicles, all the items that we talked about in the strategic plan. A lot of technology improvements we're looking at now to make sure that we're utilizing everything that's available and staying on top of some of the technologies that are out there. We are looking primarily at adding a lot of paperless technology and a lot of technology where residents can go to our website and find as much information or actually apply for housing in some certain situations, if that's a possibility. So really we're starting that process of doing those implementations, the things that we really wanted to get done in that first fiscal year. We do actually, as of yesterday morning, we have nailed down dates for our public hearings as far as it relates to the forum that we're planning with the city of Aurora. Those dates are July 11th and 12th. It will be held at Waubonsie Community College. We did secure that site downtown. The board had a concern about our ability to make sure that all of the public was able to attend. What we agreed on, and as long as the board's okay with this, we'll move forward with any member of the community, no matter who they are, can come and actually participate in the panel discussion. All they need to do is put in an RSVP to the ULI, and they'll make sure that there's plenty of room for everybody to have a seat, be involved in the actual discussion. Of course, in the evening session, members of the general public are welcome to attend, but this way we are providing opportunity for those who have an opinion on the matter and would like to be heard. They'll have that opportunity afforded to them.
Keith, what times are those for the July 11th and 12th?
They are all-day events. It starts at, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning and runs pretty much until we're done.
July 11th is Thursday, July 12th is a Friday.
Yes.
No. I will not be there on Friday.
Is it the same content both days, or is it a 2-day?
No, it's a 2-day. In the morning sessions, on the first day, there'll be interviews and there'll be a smaller group discussion. The afternoon will be more of the smaller roundtable discussions like we talked about. The second day, there'll be an early morning broader conversation, and then it'll go into kind of a discussion of everything that had come out of the smaller session meetings the day before.
I guess my reaction to that is most of the general public isn't going to, a stakeholder might, superintendent of schools might send someone to be in this, or the police department might send someone to do this, but general public probably wouldn't. So maybe after we do this 2-day event, not that I'm looking to, basically, but there might need to be a third event where there's just a report back to the community on what is discussed and what's learned, and do that in the evening. So, because I think, I got questions I'd like to hear more, and I think we talked a little bit about it Monday. I think that'll be a good use of time. I just, I think that we won't get the general community input or communication there.
Yeah, for sure.
And let me add, just to be clear, I mean, does that, I imagine that it's something that we could actually do ourselves, we rent it out of space and allow for that.
Right.
My thoughts are not immediately after, say if we're doing this Thursday and Friday. I mean,
Right.
I give it, a few days.
Yeah.
So that it can sink in, hopefully the newspaper will cover it and give people time enough to, at least, purchase papers and read what's going on, and then when they come to the forum, they can turn around and ask questions, and I agree, I think we can probably do that ourselves and as board members and just let our feelings be known.
Yeah, and maybe, and it could be a separate meeting, or maybe we do our July meeting in a forum that, would allow, kind of a different forum for that July meeting, or have an additional meeting in August or something where you give.
We certainly could do that, absolutely. Any other questions, comments?
Do you think anybody would say, hey, you're doing this during the day, regular folk need to work, they can't show up?
Well, and that's why the general public portion is in the afternoon, is in the evenings. That session, I should believe, begins at around 4 o'clock and runs until everybody's had an opportunity to speak.
Okay,
Oh, which day is that?
The first day.
Thursday.
So the first day is an evening session, or the first
Well,
day?
both days are full day sessions.
Uh-huh.
The evening session is for people to actually have an opportunity to come in and be in these smaller roundtable discussions. The early morning session is more about the interviews. You allow me doing a lot of panel discussions at that, in the morning session. That's with the stakeholder list that we're putting together now. But the afternoon, the general public, and the evening, those will be times that are set aside so that people who do work have an opportunity to come.
Okay, I think
I
that's-
just think next week is 4th of July, okay, so most people are kind of checked out. And so we're really just giving people like a week and a half notice. I'm just thinking about myself, that's hardly any notice to take 2 days, to do this thing. I mean, that's asking a lot, and we haven't even let the stakeholders know what the dates are yet.
Well, one of the things about the situation is that the stakeholders only need to be present if they're going to do an interview, for example. They could come for their interview and then come back afterwards. They don't need to stay the full length of the day after they had an opportunity to talk. That's a choice, I guess, that they would have to make. Now, I do agree that it's short timing. We were kind of pressed. We wanted to make sure that we had this. We pushed really hard to make sure that we got it before our board meeting so that we could make a decision at our board meeting. Now, certainly we could go back and ask for.
Can I interrupt you a second? Point of clarification. I know that some of us board members want to be there, but we can't be there the entire time.
Certainly.
Okay, especially business owners, okay?
Especially everybody.
Well, I mean, but more, if you're retired, maybe you're busy, but maybe you're not, and, I don't know if you're retired or not, Judy, and I don't know Maddie's situation. But people are giving the recommendations on all this stuff. We don't have to be there every single minute.
No.
We only have to be there if we want to be in for certain segments,
Yes.
is that correct?
Yes.
Because they're gonna give us a recommendation, and we want to hear what the public has to say after that recommendation is given.
Yes.
So we don't have to really be there at all unless we want to.
To be completely honest, any member of the board, obviously has a little bit of extra leverage. You needed to have a separate time where you could have questions asked and answered. We could arrange for that. And if any member of the community really needed that, we could arrange for that as
Well,
well.
what about the stakeholders though? What's their time commitment to this 2-day thing?
Their time commitment is on one, it's the interview process, and then secondly, if their time allows and they want to be involved beyond the interview process or beyond this initial question and answer session, they can come as they kind of want to the panel discussions or to the roundtables if they wish to be involved in that. There's a lot, I understand, the concern about the time constraints. It is, 2 days, even for me, if I look at my calendar, it's like, that's 2 days, I'm not gonna be actually doing work, So, I completely understand that concern. I think the way we're trying to structure it, it allows people to kind of come and go as they can. And again, if we find somebody wants to be involved and needs some accommodations, we'll certainly make those accommodations.
Dave, did you get any feedback from stakeholders at the last process we went through as far as the time constraint? I'm just asking because you.
Well, I didn't get feedback, but I felt like that whole process was, it was like a couple of hours in the afternoon, which is much different than like a whole day thing, so.
Okay.
I think that's the difference for people that are working. We might be able to take a couple hours off and make that happen, even once a week for a number of weeks or whatever, but, 2 full days is, almost undoable.
No, and I understand, and
With a
certainly.
week notice, basically.
And I completely understand, and certainly, for those who don't have the time, they can come and go pretty much as they please. So if you have an hour on your lunch, that you can come down and actually be involved, do your sit-down interviews, that can be accommodated.
So just take a step back on the agenda and I don't wanna beat the horse here, but, so the first day that's an interview process, how would that unfold?
A lot of that is between the ULI and the stakeholders who are being interviewed. So one of the things that we were very clear about was that both the city and the housing authority would actually be kind of removed from that process to allow for an open discussion without the pressure of, Rick or myself and somebody's like, hey, kind of do what we want you to do. So
These are one-on-one interviews?
no, they're actually more like 5-on-1 interviews. So it'll be a group, say a group about this
So
size
we
sitting
shouldn't even
down.
be in on those because we might
No.
come across as like,
Exactly, but you probably would be asked to sit in a forum with this group here to give your opinion to one of the panel members.
okay. And so those are so there might be like, how many employees from ULI are gonna be there?
As many as they need. Right now, the number is somewhere around 20. It's a lot of people because they want to make sure that they get an opportunity to give. If they need to have 7 of these at a time or 10 of these at a time, they want to be able to make sure that they can do that.
Okay,
Is
so
there-
that's the, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You-
Is there a series of topics then that you get asked, or is this
And it's an email I sent out. I didn't. I
Okay,
know,
sorry.
Yeah, no. I sent it out earlier today. So here's. The questions are still being formed, so we're working. These are just drafts of the questions, but
And so while
basically-
you're doing that, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
you said that there will be later, opportunity for the general public to respond and have comments.
yes.
So how are you notifying people? What kind of advertisement or how is the meeting being announced that there is even a meeting?
We're still working on exactly the format of the letter, but it will be a joint press release from the Housing Authority and the city, as well as the recommendation made by the board at our working session to reach out to community groups, smaller local newspapers, the community television and churches, in an effort to really get that word out and let people know how and where they can be involved.
Every group that was at the fair.
Absolutely. The questions are still being formulated. There are a lot of, one of the things we're trying to avoid in that is making sure the questions didn't lead a discussion one way or another, but were kind of formless enough to allow people to talk freely and kind of openly about the situation. So, but those are the kind of the basic ideas of the questions that will be presented to the stakeholders and to the general public if they wish to be involved.
So the questions go on Thursday, and then what happens on Friday?
Friday is more of a panel discussion of kind of going deeper into kind of solutions to those questions. And unfortunately, I know a lot of this is a little formless, and we're still kind of working on a lot of the smaller details. So as we get those, of course, those will be given to the board as well.
And again, this is just the first part of it.
Yes.
They're gonna come back with recommendations, and then we still give, I think you mentioned it, Scott, we still give the public another opportunity that's just done by us to come voice their concerns.
Absolutely.
And then we take that into, and then make the final decision.
So, also, we did arrange 1 or 2 members of the ULI Directors Board will be at our board meeting next month. If that's when we decide we're going to make a decision, they're going to come to that board meeting to answer any questions that the board might have at that point in time as well.
And does this decision have to be made in July at the board meeting?
It's the board's choice when we make the decision. That was just the date that we set up that we wanted to do. We missed the first one, which was May. So
Alex, what are the dates for the board meeting in July?
the 20th and 22nd, I believe.
It's not the 29th and 31st, right?
No.
The 22nd.
Okay, thank
and
you,
24th.
thank you.
my reaction is that if you do this process on the 11th and 12th, I don't think you do anything in the evenings on those dates. You do this process, and then we discuss it as a board on July meeting, and then we have a follow-up public forum where we share our thinking or our whatever and give people a chance to comment, because I think if it goes, if they don't get time to kind of, first we react to it and then they react to what we say, and then we schedule our, votes or whatever we're gonna do after that. 'Cause I don't know, I think it's too fast to try to do all this, and then I think it's too important and too fast to, not get the public input.
No, I was looking for, who's the guy from the city?
Oh, that other, yeah, that guy.
There.
It's late.
I don't know, that's just my comment. I think that's kind of where, if we wanna be transparent and we wanna really get their input, I think that like Dave said, this is really soon. I don't know what kind of participation we'll get, but hopefully we get good participation. We do this process with the city and we talk about it, and Henry used to kind of lead us through a discussion on that, and then we go to the public. And I think if public wants to show up to this, I don't think you turn them away, but I just don't see a lot of people taking 2 days off of work you might get some retirees there, like you said, which would be great, but I don't think we'll get a real cross-section of people that are working to take 2 days off.
Did you say that the public though was more invited at 4 o'clock
In the
on
evening.
Thursday?
It is intended that they would have the evening sessions to be heard, to have an opportunity to speak at that point in time. Again, the board is certainly free to determine how we process this. If we want to take longer to, give more opportunity to have the community come speak to us as a board before we make the decision. At the end of the day, the housing authority is making the decision, and yes, we're working with the city, absolutely working with the city in collaboration on this, because we do want a joint project, but at the same time, the responsibility of that property at the end of the day falls to us as a housing authority board. So it is imperative, I think, that we take whatever time is necessary to discuss and allow for conversation. The main reason we pushed so hard for these dates was specifically, previously we had been given a July board meeting deadline, so we pushed to make sure that we did make that.
Well, Scott, I didn't understand your point. Can you explain it again so I make sure I understand it?
I guess a couple points is that point one is, because of the short notice, I think we might be able to get some stakeholders there. I don't think we'll get people to do the day sessions, the general public. If we do something at night there, I don't think that's a bad thing, as long as it makes sense. My thinking is, though, that we need to have a forum where we can really get good public response and say, here are our options, or here are different scenarios. That we had a group together and we talked about different scenarios, or here's the scenario we like, or here's what we, and then, present it and get people to comment on it. I don't know. That's just my
So just give them 2 opportunities. One,
I don't want
in a
to
couple
stop people
weeks.
from participating in
Yeah,
this,
4.
but I just don't think this should be our only venue to.
I agree.
Well, and I think that maybe we should have our act together a little bit as far as some thoughts that we have moving forward. So when we open it up to like a more general public, so if we can gather the information from this study, have a board meeting, kind of figure out a little bit where we stand and the different options that we have, then if we go to the public, we can start out by saying, here are some of the things that we're thinking about.
So at the second meeting, us really say, here's what our 1, 2, and 3 options are, and then get feedback from the public on that? Is that what you're thinking, Dave?
Just,
I don't have a problem with that.
are we in agreement with that?
I'm not trying to prolong it.
Why be in a hurry now? There's no disadvantage, there's no disadvantage for us right now to rush through anything. Okay, so what might be in there, just take our time.
Yep.
You know, we only have one chance at this.
If we do our sessions on July 11th and 12th and vote on something and 2 weeks later, we'll run the risk that, you know, a
Ram
big chunk of
Right.
people in town won't even know that we did anything, you
Right,
know?
Right.
You know, I don't think anybody's suggesting that though.
Yeah, no, but-
Yeah, so,
So then, if I understand what we're gonna do, we'll have the process the 11th to 12th. We'll have the board meeting. After the board meeting, after we've had an opportunity to discuss it, we'll go forward with an open forum in regards to that.
I mean, I think we should schedule those now.
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted
Yeah.
trying to get that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then presumably the August board meeting then would probably be our best bet at making fun.
Do we want one open forum? Do we want?
We have as many in that time frames as we need.
I'm just asking, do we have one in east side, west side, north, south,
Midtown.
downtown, uptown?
People wanna come, they'll come no matter where it's at.
Yeah, some people are burned out anyway.
That's what it
You know,
Some.
I know.
Are there any other questions related to this?
Entirely.
If not, there are just two more comments, and I'll try and make them quick. We kind of went for a little while there. You know, we've been kind of working. We've had a lot of positive success as far as kind of good things being said about the Housing Authority. And just one of the things new things that came out, the NARO, which is a Public Housing Industry Association, came forward and shared one of the stories, the good stories about families moving in to our new public housing unit. So that was shared with over 600 different Twitter followers, and that's one of the things where we're continuing to have good things said about the Housing Authority, positive images put forth about the agency, and that's kind of the thing we want, and we want it to come really organically, just as a matter of the things we're doing, the changes we're making. We want them to have such a positive impact that people naturally pick up on them, as opposed to us kind of working for or towards the story. We want the story to be so good that it needs told. And that's really starting to be what's happening now. I'm sure across, as we look at 5 years out, not every story will be positive, but I figure if we can get, the majority of those, it's a winning record, and that's probably what we want. So
I'll take what we can get. What was the?
NARO, NAHRO, it's the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials. If there are no other questions, or are there any questions? I apologize. If there are none. I do, again, and we did this Monday, but we'll do it for the entire group. As everybody's aware, we were looking for, and we had an open position for a while for a public housing program manager, someone who could oversee all of the public housing properties kind of under one roof and help with the management of that. During our search, we had candidates come in from as far away as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and from agencies as large as 8,000 units of public housing. So we really looked at a very large cross-section of candidates, and what we were very pleased to find is that the best candidate for the job was already here, which means we wasted a little bit of money in talking to people. But the best candidate for the job was here, and we are very pleased to announce that Maria Godinez is our new public housing program manager. And with that, you get the joy of giving your report.
Thank you. First, I wanted to start off with the waiting list information. With numbers dwindling in the waiting list area, we're going to be looking to purge the waiting list in July, with possibly reopening some of the bedroom sizes in the month of September. With the Ross program, we had the fair that Kim Aponte invited vendors, tenants and all of that to come out. We had good feedback. There's around about 20 some odd tenants and other outside non-AHA residents that attended. Maple Terrace fire information. As of recently, there are still 9 tenants out in Motel 6. By the end of the month, we foresee only 6, either because the other ones are being relocated, or they're to other public housing units, or they've decided to move out on their own. secure other units elsewhere.
If they do that, do they still have dibs back on their units, or do they give up those?
No,
Just- So that, I mean, do they,
if they're decided to move completely out, that's it for now.
yeah,
They'll have to reapply once the waiting list reopens. Some of the activities at the sites, we had the food pantry truck here at Centennial House. We have golden dinners here as well. Just found out Maple Terrace will also be having golden dinners over at, for the 4th of July. We had a couple activities over at Eastwood. Riverwoods had the summer camp for the children, so they did that last week. And a couple other cleanup days at Southland that the tenants took it upon themselves to do out there.
Is there any
That's
questions?
pretty much it on that side.
Are there any questions from Rick?
what's the process you go through to purge that list? How do you do that?
We basically take a list of all the people who are still on that waiting list. We send out a letter to the last known address that the applicant has given us. We give them a deadline, usually a few weeks out, to respond. If they do not respond, they are then removed and notified that they're removed from the waiting list. If they do respond, we do give them the opportunity to update any preferences at that time.
Do you have phone numbers on that waiting list?
They would be on their application
Because here's
if
my,
they provided one.
if you mail something to them and you don't get any response back, and they have a phone number on there, I think we would be remiss, you know, if we didn't reach out to them, you know, because now we're gonna purge it from a list that's, I mean, this is their lives. You know, and I can understand if, you know, I mean, I think you're gonna find a lot of people that aren't gonna be, you know, at the address where you're gonna, you know, so we could go to, you know, 1,400 people on a list, realistically, we could probably go down to 500-600 people. But if there's a phone number there, I mean, I would feel more comfortable if, at least if we reach out and utilize phone number also. You know, send a letter, utilize phone number also, and if there's no response from there, then, you know, we did our best. I don't know
The
how
only
it
problem
went.
I foresee with that is sometimes we'll have people change phone numbers constantly.
No, I understand that, yeah.
I think we have to have a procedure though.
Well, and we do.
That does the mailing list, does the phone number, and email addresses people, if you have them, they
Right.
don't change them that much.
Right.
So you have to have a process where I think you try to contact them.
Right.
And I don't wanna make it labor intensive, but I think you have to have a process to make it fair.
I would hate to, you send me a letter, I've got a phone number, or even an email, you send me a letter and I have moved. I think I would probably have a recourse if you take me off the list, because I still have that same phone number for 10 years. Nobody reached out for me on my phone or on my email. So, I mean, legally, I think they might have some sort of recourse against the housing authority. So, I mean, that's all I'm saying. I know it's a little extra work, don't get me wrong, I totally understand that, but I mean, if there isn't, then it's fine. I mean, there's nothing you can do. The only way you can reach out to them is with what you have. But if we have a phone or an email, I think we need to turn around and utilize that also.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be incumbent on the person to send them to change their address?
Oh,
Well, let me just, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Okay.
one of the requirements of being on the waiting list is that if they have a change in address, phone number, any
Yeah.
contact information, they are supposed to inform the
Notify us.
housing authority immediately. That is a requirement. That's not to say that we can't try multiple. I mean, there's systems out there where we can, you know, maybe we pay $100 and we get a blast phone call out saying the housing authority is reaching out to you to update your status on the waiting list. Please call us so that we can get in touch. Those are things that we can do. Certainly, there are minimal costs, and with technology, we should be able to do that fairly easily. It's just one of the things that, you know, as a housing authority, because the waiting list gets so big, we put the responsibility on the applicant to keep us notified.
Well, and I understand that, that's the way it should be.
But certainly, we will do, because we don't want to be considered, and a purge is not a normal, you don't do it every year, we do it once every 10 years. So it is something we want to handle very carefully, because we want to make sure that everybody who needs housing remains on that list.
But we wanna do it better than what the government says.
Absolutely.
Okay. Which means Southwest, the Disney, okay?
Are there any other questions from Bruce?
the guys work extremely hard. They did mainly the interior work, and then they worked alongside contractors for a lot of the exterior work, like roads, gutters, concrete, that type of stuff. They also had Eastwood parking lot resealed and restriped. And we had landscapers actually come up and touch up a lot of our sites and a few of our scattered sites, you know, just kind of cutting down some trees, even planting some flowers just to make it look more. Over at Maple Terrace, cleanup is still going. Pretty much everything's done, all the stairwells, all the hallways, you know, anything tile that need to be replaced, ceiling tiles, floor tiles, that's all in place except for the second floor. We're still working on the second floor. So our top priorities have been vacancies, and as of right now, we have no 0 or 1 bedrooms. As soon as they come, I pull whoever we need to. Vacancies turn around so we can get the residents back into the home atmosphere, pretty much so. And we've been trying to accommodate them as much as possible, make the transition as smooth as possible. But it is hard for them to be moving, so, you know, the maintenance staff's been really good about, you know, going up and retrieving some of their stuff that's salvageable from the old units. We actually had several agencies that have offered furniture and stuff that we have picked up and delivered to their units and stuff like that, and help. And the residents have been real good about it, real cooperative and stuff. It's just kind of a tedious thing. There's no format, no, you know, schedule. It just kind of comes. And, you know, both the residents and the main staff have worked real well with that. And we also been continuing to still pick up furniture over at the restoration company at Clement Ponte had started, and we still deliver it to other residents. Even Section 8 to some of the residents. Over at Maple Terrace also, they decided, Jim and council they wanted to start a garden, so we actually, a couple of meetings, guys staked it out and wrote to it and got it all set up for us. And then they also helped with Ross. The health and benefit fair and stuff, that turned out really well. You know, both maintenance staff and office staff, you know, contributed, and it just turned out really well. We had a lot of, like Rhea said, a lot of the residents, a lot of people, and it was a nice mixture of stuff, and it turned out really well. Didn't even start raining until after it was over. So, and then Southwind had a cleanup day a couple weeks ago, so we actually provided all the brooms and shovels and rakes and gloves and stuff. And we also provided a dumpster for them so they could kind of clean out their units and clean out their sheds or anything to get rid of all that stuff. Also, we had 12 more ACs and furnaces installed at various scattered sites and stuff, so that gives us a total of 24 brand new stolen. And that's all from the grant funding we got from the energy efficient.
How many more will you be able to procure with that money?
We pretty much spent every dollar they've
Okay.
given us. I think, Carlos and I went over the numbers. I think in one grant we left $200. So we are spending every dollar we can get our hands on. And that's, all those dollars we'll be seeing back. One of the requirements of the grant is that we spend the money first and they'll give us some of the funds back. So as you look at the public housing financials, there's, easily $80,000 of revenue that will be coming back to us in the next couple months there from us fully expending the grant.
Around 10 vacant units this month.
Any questions for Jim? New business?
We have one resolution to come before the board. It's part of an annual requirement we have. The CMAP, which is our Section 8 management reporting, has to be submitted to HUD. It was actually already submitted because it's due May 31st. But part of the binder, which was available Monday for the board, of that giant binder, roughly like 400 some odd pages, it has to have a certification that the board is aware that we did put in the CMAP, and if there were any questions, that those questions were answered. So if there are any questions.
Make a motion, we pass resolution 13-11.
Second.
Alex, would you read the resolution, please?
Resolution 13-11. Whereas the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development requires that the Aurora Housing Authority submit a Section 8 Management Assessment Program certification for each fiscal year. And whereas the CMAS certification has been completed based on information from April 1st, 2012 through March 31st, 2013, and Keith Gregory, Executive Director of Aurora Housing Authority, has received review, concurs with information provided for the CMAS certification, and whereas a resolution by the Board of Commissioners is required to approve the CMAP certification before it may be submitted to HUD. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Aurora Housing Authority approve the CMAP certification for submittal to HUD and in compliance with HUD requirements.
Call the roll, please.
Henry Champion,
Yay.
Bill Powell,
Yes.
Matty Cobble,
Yes.
Ray Cruz,
Yes.
Scott Boris.
Yes.
Dave Richard,
Yes.
Judy Rungy,
Yes.
Yes has it. Resolution 1311 passed.
Redevelopment issues. We do have one piece of news in relation to some of the redevelopment we've been doing as we talked Monday. The tax credit application has been approved for a full application, so we are working with Brenshaw to put in a full application. So this application, as we remember back in March, we split our application. So this is a full 40 units of supportive housing, project-based Section 8 voucher. So there's no fixed housing here. This is all supportive housing for disabled families, elderly families, and veterans. And so we're going to put in a full application. We believe it's a very strong application. We were talking with Brenshaw this morning on some of the finer points. The Housing Authority does maintain a piece of the partnership, some of the smaller pieces of the deal, but we will have a full application to go in next month, as that is concerned. Other than that, though, I have nothing.
Any questions? Other comments? Just a reminder to keep your remarks or comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Jones, Stanley. No comment. Greenville?
Yes. Sharina Hill, Make the City Council President. I know it's 3-minute minimum, but I just have a question for Ms. Udina. Regarding the waiting list, just out of curiosity, is that something new that's now they're removed from the list, because before they were like just put on the data list?
No, this is the same process that we've added. If the housing authority needs to, in this case, because we're having a lot of applicants who are either not responding or because they do not qualify, we're finding that a lot of these, more than half, this is a situation. So in order to either clean up that waiting list, either because the applicants are no longer interested, we reach out to them and try and build a new list. If they don't respond, and I guess we'll be taking a look at other forms of reaching out to them. If they don't respond in the allotted time, then yes, they are removed, and then they'll have to reapply if and when the waiting list is open.
Okay, and also to the board, I just wanted to, I'm not sure if you all are aware, but as president of Tenant Council at Maple Terrace, as you all know, we had a fire at Maple Terrace. And the Tenant Council had asked for a list of fire victims, just to reach out to the fire victims, reach out, concerns, whatever they needed. We were told by Mr. Gregory that we could not have that. We couldn't get the list of fire victims. And then, as you all know, Mr. Ponte came with this beautification committee, and then a tenant of Maple Terrace had suggested that tenants do community service on site. And amongst during all the chaos that was going on, Mr. Ponte had placed the former Tenant Council President as head of the beautification committee. Somewhere in there, is misunderstanding. I don't know what happened, but this tenant became like over the community service process. And our property manager, Teresa, she gave the tenant a list of all residents with no income, which I myself, as well as others, are on their list, and we have a problem with that. Assuming that Mr. Ponte knew about this, I contacted Mr. Gregory regarding this. He said it's not illegal, and he didn't see nothing wrong with a tenant having a list of all tenants with no income. which we do have a problem with that, it's violating our privacy, is there's no reason tenants should have a list of all tenants with no income knocking at tenants' doors about their community service. That's Aurora Housing Authority. So that's a job for Aurora Housing Authority staff, which in this case would be Kim Aponte. So I don't know how you all feel about that. Is that not a problem to you all? You say it's not illegal, but I guess if the tenants house, I mean, obviously, Kim, I brought it to her attention. I was the first one to mention it to her, so she knew nothing about it. She apologized that it happened. I mean, and yeah, it's happening. There's nothing to be done. You know, tenants know other tenants' business basically already. So there's nothing else to be done. But like in the future, like there has to be boundaries. There's no reason why tenants should have that type of information about other tenants. Any comments?
I would, just personally, I would tend to agree with you. I don't see where there's a need for that type of information to be disclosed to other tenants. So it would be my suggestion in the near future that we probably should be careful with that.
Ms. Hill, and certainly, of course, you know, you and I talked about this. When we discussed it, I think one of the things that we mentioned was that the list in and of itself, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, and since Teresa's here, you as well, the list was not actually of zero income residents, but of residents who needed to perform community service. That list is not related to your income at all. It's just a list of members who need to do community service, and we were allowing them an opportunity to do that community service on site. Now, again, certainly understand the perception of what that list may have stood for, but certainly the list included individuals who needed to do community service, and that is unrelated to the fact that you have zero income. That is a requirement of the agency through HUD. But considering, and you know, you and I have discussed this, and we, you know, again, though my feelings, given the information that was in the list, you know, I certainly don't necessarily think that there was anything wrong about it. As I think I mentioned before, I certainly understood your concerns, and it is something in the future that we will be more careful about.
I mean, basically, it's like Aurora Housing Authority policy, those who have no income have some community service. Bottom line, they went about it all wrong. And there's no reason why tenants should be having no control over anybody's community service. That's not a tenant's place. That's Aurora Housing Authority.
Well, don't get me wrong, and I don't know that, you know, and I understand, you know, when we talked, there was some miscommunication that occurred. And, you know, again, we're doing some things differently, so there will be some times when there are miscommunications and things that happen a little less orderly than they would the second time around. So certainly, you know, we'll work with the resident council, now that you guys are established and recognized and funded, mind you.
We are.
So now that we've got all of those things in place, we'll certainly be working more with you guys to organize these kinds of things.
And well, and question for you. So, what was the why couldn't we give a list of just the fire victim name?
The fire
Just to reach out to the fire victims.
Well, the reason at that time there was a lot of confusion going on, like I mentioned before, whether or not we felt that that was appropriate to have people finding individuals at a hotel, or whether or not they wanted to be found at a hotel, was questionable to us. And at that time, if I'm correct, we were still working on whether or not you guys would actually be tenant council, which is another problem for us as a housing authority. But again, and we're running out of time on this, but you and I, as you know, the housing authority and the tenant council president, will continue to work, you know, in the future to address these problems.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Jacqueline Strong?
Hi, I'm a tenant at Maple Terrace. And my concern basically is the handling of the rent. I pay by check. And so now my check has still not been deducted from my account. And I've been notified that I am late behind in my rent, and I'm not late behind in my rent. I've spoke with Teresa, and Teresa has told me to speak with Beverly, and Beverly, she's aware of it, so they're looking into it. But there has to be some type of process that needs to be changed or something, because they're stating that, well, it hasn't reached, my account is still full. Those checks numbers hasn't even been there yet.
For 2 months?
Yeah.
For 2 months?
Okay.
Now,
10 months?
No.
Two.
Now, mind you, the very first time that they started this new process, they deducted from my account twice.
Oh.
well, that would be part of. Certainly, I mean, as you mentioned, well, I'm sorry, were you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Certainly, as you mentioned, you know, it is a new process, and of course, there are kinks in the process where we're dealing with those. I think one of the things that you mentioned, though, I think is probably a positive sign, is that, you know, you mentioned that to the property manager, and the property manager immediately contacted our accounts receivable in person, and we are aware of the problem. So, any, you know, adverse rent effects that you would normally have for us not having received your rent, obviously we're aware of this, so those won't occur. We will definitely try and, you know, get this resolved as soon as possible. One thing I would encourage that you do is reach out to Old Second Bank, and I know Teresa can probably help you with contacting the bank, because that's exactly where the payments go now.
I understand that, took you to that.
Right.
And
So-
you put it in her hand.
And as a result of that, you know, we have a little bit less control. It was a security issue. We don't really handle the money anymore. So it's really a communication between the bank and the housing authority and the resident. So again, we'll continue, you know, we're already aware, we're already working on the problem. We'll continue to figure that out. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and as far as the late payment goes, who's responsible for that?
Well, as long as the bank tells us that you paid us on time, there won't be any. Don't worry about that.
Mr. Kenneth?
Yeah. I'm also a resident of Main Terrace, probably one of the longest tenants that's been there, like 25 years. So every time there was a fire, I was there.
We can name a room after you if you'd like, sir.
Back up to this. I know the cleaning crews will come in, they do the wipe down, but still I have muscle disease. And they do a pretty good job for the cleaning, but I want to know how often do they paint? Because the unit is like this carpet here, man. You know, the walls not fresh like this.
I don't want to let you finish, sir.
That was basically it right there. I need to see where I'm going up in this car.
Well, you know, typically we try to paint, you know, as units return. That's the normal time when we do our painting. Now, one of the things we're dealing with as an agency is changing the way that we do our business and changing the way that our residents are living, the situations that they're in. And that will include some, you know, more regular painting schedules, some freshening schedules. But if you'd like, Jim is here. We can all kind of arrange a time. We can have some guys come out and take a look at your
When
unit.
we do that, some of the maintenance guys will use supply.
You can talk to Jim right now.
Get it done.
Want me to do it now, is that what you're doing?
Well, sir, if you
Yeah,
can.
I'll meet with you and address it.
The ceiling is still like dark, those chairs. They did a good job for us, you know, cleaning the best they could, but throughout the years, all those fires, and I live on the fourth floor, so all this is.
We'll get you taken care of.
Rent reduction.
We don't want that. That's a negative for you and us.
Okay, I'm glad.
All right.
Thank you. You have any non-pending legal,
I have no reason.
no reason to go into it? Any other questions from the commissioners?
No, sir.
I would like to go into executive session.
Yeah, for what?
Motion?
You
Before we do that-
have to.
I'm sorry. The motion has to say the reason and then.
I would like to go into executive session for matters of personnel.
You guys need
Got
to
a
vote
motion
in a
and a
second.
second?
Second.
So move. Have a 3-minute break.
I know you'll email us, I don't remember that July 11th thing, because I guess I.
So they'll be, Please,
What's up?
You were scared this morning, right?